skin of snow and hair of red. I see you dancing on my bed into the space you left the night before.
This episode of Music in Practice is
You
called
who
Hell.
know me inside out, tell me how I did without. You're the one that I was waiting for. She moves, she flies. One look
In this
into
episode
her
of Music
eyes.
in Practice, I'm going to explore the realities of taking up a musical instrument at later in life. There are, obviously, a lot of reasons why music might dwindle, but now perhaps you're thinking seriously about reapproaching your old pastime. Maybe you gave it up because you left school, or exams were taking priority. Maybe you didn't have time, and life just got in the way. Or maybe it's a little deeper than that. Could it remind you of being a kid and it's been put away in that mental and physical box? You never fancied re-engaging with something from that time in your life. Happy to leave it there along with the dusty old exercise books and barely held together art projects. Maybe it reminds you of hard work, or a teacher that was a bit scary or uninspiring. Perhaps it ended in a traumatic moment, a feeling of insecurity, embarrassment or hurtful comments. This type of experience is commonplace, not just isolated to young students, but adults and professionals too. There may have been a feeling of relief when you didn't have to perform anymore. But now you're here, ready to have another try, or at least reconnect with the creativity that you can't find in any other pursuit. So where do you start? I spoke to Allen Cheshire, professional French horn player and teacher, about his experience with adult learners. Here's a few of his insights and tips into getting music going again. Apologies in advance when listening to this interview. It took place in the heart of the school day, and you can hear all manner of music lessons taking place in the background. I started by asking Allen why he thought people would be reticent to start lessons again.
I think it's, I don't know whether it's some sort of memory where they kind of think, oh, I remember how much hard work it was the first time round. or I don't know, they just sort of, it's just that, it's a bit like everything. How do I get going again? If that makes sense, having not done it for such a long time, how do I get that initial thing? And of course, the best thing to do is to find a teacher and to just go and try it again and see how you get on and break the ice, Go to someone who can see where you are and can see and can guide you back to, hopefully where you were, or even maybe beyond where you were before, sort of thing. And I've seen that with several of my adult learners, is that, it's that, and it's just it's someone, basically, it's a bit like going to a gym. It's someone explaining to you the exercises and the things you need to do in order to get fit again, if that makes sense. So, and especially in the case of a wind or a brass player, it's just, how to rebuild those muscles in a sensible, gradual way, rather than just trying to put it on your face and hope it's all going to work straight away. Because it's not. You might get a nice note out initially, but then after 5 minutes, you're like, oh my God, that's really hard work, So it's building everything up, and and just gradually, being shown the ropes again, and maybe actually for some, it's learning things slightly differently to how they learned it the first time. So to say, oh, nobody ever explained that to me. Maybe it was explained, but of course, learning as a teenager is very different to learning as an adult, if that makes sense. And I think one of the biggest things as well, usually when an adult comes to it, there's a real want, there's a real desire to want to do it, if that makes sense, Whereas I think kids think, well, I've got all the time in the world, I don't need to spend so much time practicing. I normally find that usually most of my adults are quite, provided life isn't something doesn't come up, they're normally quite good at going away and doing what you want them to do, if that makes sense, because the drive and the urge is there to do better, if that makes sense. So it's just that initial breaking the ice, it's that initial contacting, finding a teacher. I've had a chap, I'm currently one of my adult students, he literally came up to me after a concert and said, do you teach lessons? And I went, yes. And he goes, well, I'm going off to Canada, but when I come back, can I contact you? And then I completely forgot, because it was months, because I forgot he was going away for ages. And then just a random call came out of the blue, sort of thing. And he's still doing it, which is great, and enjoying it, which is, and making progress, which is a key thing.
I think progress is, that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you get to the stage as well where then, he then started joining an easy orchestra, like an all-comers orchestra type thing, and then from that he's progressed on to orchestras that are a little bit more challenging, but it's just that initial, and I think once you feel because as you know, I mean, it's as much a social thing as it is about actually being in a room all by yourself, you know, doing whatever. There is a lot of satisfaction in achieving goals, but it's really nice then to put it together with other people. It's the making music with others, which kind of brings it all together, and you kind of think, this makes sense now.
That
you know?
satisfaction.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get that from other walks of life, really. It's not quite like working with people and then just, you know, being social and go to the pub or something.
No.
This is actually creative. You've got an objective. You've worked for months on the same project, and then it all comes together, hopefully in front of your friends, in front of your family or people you know, and that can be incredibly rewarding. And then you can go to the pub.
yeah, that's the important. There's always a pub at the end.
Yeah.
It's a bit, if you think about it, playing music is a little bit like having a round of golf. If you think about it, you do your 18 holes and then you go to the 19th hole afterwards, you know, to celebrate all those slices and wonderful putts that you did, you know, sort of thing. So it's the same idea, same principle. But quite often I do get called in to sort of help out amateur orchestras because they have maybe a couple of players in the section, but they don't have a complete section. So you can just go in and sit on, you know, whatever horn they want you to sit on and just sort of help out, if that makes sense. And it's always interesting, I mean, because people are always quite keen to kind of ask you questions, and they're always quite receptive, I find, to, you know, if you just sort of say, well, have you tried this? You know, if you tried doing it like that, it's a little bit easier, you know, and they're quite sort of, oh, okay, I didn't think of that, you know, so it's quite mentoring / teaching, but you're sort of just sitting alongside playing, you know. I mean, and obviously there are different sort of levels of amateur orchestras. Some are genuinely very good. I mean, some of the players could have been professional, but have decided, you know, they're going to go and do computing, you know, they're going to go and do something else or be a doctor or something, but they've very much kept the playing going, and they're just in that amateur orchestra just because they still have that want to do it, they still have that desire, you know. It's kind of, it never really leaves them, you know.
It's funny you should mention doctors, because there seems to be quite a correlation between medics and music somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Mathematicians, scientists, and I think it's because, if you think about it, I mean, music, as you know, is one of those few ventures that kind of really stretches your brain, and that it uses all your brain, because, you know, it's not just the mathematical side, it's not just the creative side, it's both of those things together at the same time. And of course it's medically proven that playing an instrument, and especially there have been articles recently saying that it's a great way of fending off things like Alzheimer's and stuff as well, encouraging people get into music, because it's something that really does give your brain a real workout, you know. And I think that's the key thing. I think if you enjoy doing something, then you don't mind doing it. It's a bit like people, they get addicted to running, they get addicted. It's how they feel afterwards. It's that sort of, I feel good, you know, and that's what makes them want to go out and run again, or that makes them go out and want to do something again. And it's the same thing about wanting to pick your instrument out of the case, is that, you know, you've enjoyed the last session. But it's a great way of physically staying fit as well.
Yeah,
it's a
right.
Good, I mean, I find that as well with a lot of, because it really does improve their lung capacity. You know, and it really
breathing,
does.
Just a simple thing.
Just simple thing about taking big deep breaths and then using your core strength to control that airflow. You know, it's that sort of. It's what they really need to, you know. There's a physical thing, there's a mental thing there, and I think sometimes all people just need, you know, chances are all families all gone, and they just like that sort of challenge of kind of going, I used to do that, I wonder can I still do that, you know. And it's just being brave to get it out of the box, and, you know, maybe it needs to go to a repairer because it hasn't been touched for a while, you know. It's get it sorted out, but then I say go and listen to concerts, and then approach people, talk to them and see what they say. And because I say, I've had a few people who just come up to me and said, or I've had a random phone call saying, I found your name in a directory, you were my closest one, and you're just like, yeah, okay, come along. And we'll, you know, and it's basically, it's knowing, you know how to do it, but it's knowing what to do in order to get the goal that you want at the end of that.
Or try this, or try something different here, or, you know, that sort of thing. And it can be such a nerve-wracking moment for a lot of people, I think. Not only have they just got the instrument out of the box, and that it wasn't quite as good as it was last time they put it away 20 years ago, but now they have to fess up. It feels like they're going to someone, they've done it, they've booked someone, they've got an appointment, they're going to go see someone they don't know, a stranger they're going to stand in front of, and then try and play, or try and, you know, and I think that's such a crunch point for so many people.
That's the biggest hurdle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think if you can, but what you got to bear in mind as well is that you're paying that person, you know, for their time. Yeah. And, you know, and most teachers worth their salt are always, you know, that they will help. You know, that's what they're there for. You know, it's like, you've come to me, okay, let's see what we can do. You know, so I would say don't be afraid of making that of making that decision. You know, just be brave. Go. That is the biggest thing. But then, as you say, once you sort of sit next to that person or stand next to that person and they play something and they make mistakes sometimes as well, you kind of go, oh, okay, you know, they are human.
Normal.
If you can get over that first lesson, then you'll want to book another one and come back for another one, because you'll sort of go, oh yeah, that helps actually. That, and now I know what I need to do in order to get back on that journey again, if that makes sense. You know, as an adult, learning things, I don't know if you find this, but I find sometimes and I've heard a lot of older people talking about, it's the processing speed that's not the same.
Right.
Kids pick things up incredibly quickly.
Yes.
They kind of process all the, oh right, so you're just doing that, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes with adults, it can take a little bit, especially when it comes to reading a lot of music on the page. You know, they're going, I'm reading it, but nothing's coming out, you know. And I do find that's the one thing I think that most adults would say the thing that they struggle most with is the processing of the music. But of course, once it's learned, but sometimes they just need to take things a little bit more gently in order to get to that stage, you know.
So would you urge them to have realistic expectations on that front?
Well, I think, again, if you're being guided by a teacher, the teacher's saying, well, okay, your goal for this week or your goal for this fortnight or your goal for this, you know, is to work on this. And then if you get to this point, then look at that. And again, I think it's just setting people parameters, because I think, yeah, you're right. People have this expectation of what it was like 20 years ago and expect to just pick it up and just, you know, it'd be like putting on a pair of trainers. It'd be like leaping out of bed and say, this morning I will run a marathon. Yeah. You just wouldn't do it, you know. Yeah. So, I mean, so you've got to have that expectation. You've got to have that managed expectation. So I think that will, I mean, that can help people to sort of say, in some ways, yeah, you can have your own goals. Like, by this stage, I want to be able to do this. But then you can sort of base them against somebody else who's actually got the knowledge and the experience who can help you get to that level, you know. Yeah. It's just, I just think it's that broadening of your mind. I think it's just getting yourself into a new space, into somewhere that, you know, that's just different is what really sort of benefits, if that makes sense. It really pulls, you know, it just opens you, it just makes you more receptive to want to try other things in general, you know. Why do we need to just, you know, fall into one category? It's a little bit like playing as well. I mean, I don't like to just, I like to play shows, I like to play with big bands, it's just a diversity, you know, and it's, you know, that's, you're just using your instrument as a different idiom, you know, to play different things, which is great. It's very liberating. It's quite fun.
Quite liberating. Yeah. That's a good word for it, I think.
I think it just gives you that, but, you know, it's just, you know, that you're the individual that's the same, but you appreciate different styles, and you learn different styles, you know, like you learn your blues scales, you learn your swing, you do, you know, and simple, you know, we're not talking in depth into necessarily, but, you know, you've got an understanding of how things work and stuff, and it's great, it's diverse. I mean, I think one year I had the most weird thing. I did fourth horn and Beethoven 9, you know, and then at the end of that month I played in Glastonbury.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
it's like
amazing.
Wow, that's like really diverse, you know. It's like
so much fun.
But it's great, yeah, and that's the nice thing is that, you know, it is the diversity. It is the, when you think about it as well. I mean, you don't have to just learn those. You know, there's so much nice music out there now, you know, for all instruments, and they cover all genres as well. You got your film music, you got your jazz, you got your classics, which are there. Then you've got new contemporary stuff as well, if you really want to try something that's. Because I do have an adult learner who really likes modern music, and it's really interesting. It's like, oh, okay, so the more sort of, you know, slightly avant-garde it is, she really gets more out of that than if we.
Amazing!
I know, it's great, and again, that's fantastic, and I think that's the wonderful thing about teaching as well, is that you're teaching so many people who just have different tastes, you know, and it's almost like you're kind of saying, well, have you ever tried this? You know, it's like I don't know, going to a restaurant and someone go, well, what would you recommend? Yeah. You know, because you've been there loads and you know what the cuisine is like, and you go, yeah, try this, I think you'll enjoy this, or here, this is a bit different, but have a go, you know, and so I just think it's great. I mean, it's just that being able to try lots of different things, and you know, and all within the space of your own environment as well. Remember, not everyone has to hear the end result. Yeah. You know, but when you're in the safety of your own home, you can do whatever you want. You know, you can play whatever you want, and then when you feel it's ready, then you can let other people hear it. You know.
Yeah, start to share a bit.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
And some people, I suspect, as teachers, they probably quite like adult learners for all of the reasons that you've just said. That they also bring a lot to the table.
Yeah. I always say to people, the wonderful thing about music is that every time you think you've reached the end, you've mastered it, you've got it licked, as if somebody hands you a piece of paper and you go, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, and then you have to go away and figure that one out. But always think of it like a challenge, is that, you know, if initially you can't, but you learn to do it, then you can, then you're better than you were before, because you've just overcome something, you've just learned something that, you know, I couldn't do this, now I can do this, I've achieved, you know.
Amazing.
So it's a great way of, you know, it's a great way of sort of thinking about it, is that, you know, every new piece of music is just, okay. I mean, and as I say, I mean, if you go to a teacher, they'll only ever give you something which they know is achievable. They're not going to set you up to fail, because they want you to do well. They want you to kind of really enjoy the experience, and so they're always going to give you goals. Yeah, there'll be challenges within there, but they know that once you overcome that, and the way to think about it is that once you've learned it, you've overcome that. I couldn't, now I can.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing. I've got a few key words, I think, when I teach, and that is, you know, if somebody goes, I can't do that, and they go, oh, yet? And I say, yeah, exactly, you can't do it yet, but you will.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if you think about it, things can be written on a page, they can be played.
Yes.
I mean, if it's not possible to write music down, then you can't play it.
Yeah.
But if it can be written on a page, then technically it can be worked out. Yes, some are much trickier than others, but ultimately, to a degree, you will be able to play what's written in front of you. That makes sense. And I think the other key thing as well is that when people do progress, it's my two key words always, what if. You know, so when you then know a piece really well and go, yeah, I can play this. Well, could you play that louder? Could you play that softer? Could you play that faster? Could you play it slower?
Yeah.
You know, and then see if you can then turn the piece, you know, so when you know something well enough, you can then just use the same exercise and just basically turn it on its head and add more sort of creative things to it. You know, as I say, just try speeding up, try slowing down, try faster, try that. You know, if it's a tonguing exercise, can you go even faster? You know, can you, you know, so it's like, there's always, you know, it's, and I always say to people, especially if the aspiration is eventually to play in an ensemble or to play with a group or something, the more what ifs you can cover, because so often you're put on the spot by a conductor, and I always say, never say you can, say you'll try.
Yeah.
Because then if it works, you're a genius. If it doesn't, there's nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah.
So never say, oh yeah, I can do that. Because then if you can't do that, then the conductor goes, I thought you said you could do that.
Yeah.
So never nail your colours to the mast. Always sort of say, yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And that'll be my one piece of advice from a professional side of the coin, is that never nail your colours to the mast unless you know for a fact that you can do something.
Yeah.
Always kind of go, yeah, I'll give it a try, because again, if you do it, the conductor's enamoured with you, and if you can't do it, then well, I tried.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so nothing ventured,
Never
nothing
promise
gained.
anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's always best to kind of sort of, then if you did it, it's like, I mean, it's funny when you play something like natural horn, everyone expects you to get it wrong. So when you don't, they kind of go, that was amazing. And
Oh,
you go,
wow.
well, because it's such a, you know, so you're all completely relying on your lip then, and on just on the guiding yourself through the harmonics and hand stopping and all the rest of it, so that people just expect it to go wrong. So if you can get a clean run at it, people go, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. How did you do that? And you just practice.
Yeah.
Practice. So that's what you do, you know. That's what you do, just kind of to make it, and, you know, make it look and feel easy. It's practice. That's all. And that's the thing as well, is that people only ever see the end result. They don't see all the graft.
Yeah.
And that can be, and I think as well, that's what some people don't realise as well, that when they go and listen to a concert, when they go and listen to, you know, not only has that ensemble been practicing together, but the individuals within it have been working as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, so rather than being going, well, they just do it, no.
Yeah,
You don't. There's
absolutely.
there's a lot of behind the scenes. It's a bit like saying, it's just like saying an actor just turns up and just does a movie. No, they have to learn the lines, they have to go through a lot of background stuff, but we only ever see the end result.
Yeah.
So you just assume that they do it naturally. But I mean, you think about, you know, and you listen to some fantastic recordings, that might have been the 100th take. You know, and that's the thing I really love, those programs that have all those outtakes and films and stuff, you know, because you can see that, oh, it's great. Again, it's nice to see people, you know, getting things wrong, you know, because it's just as, you know, it's just to go, oh, okay.
And then it's organic. It's never gonna, never know your colours to the mask completely. It's never, it's gonna be either great or any shade of that. You know, or wherever.
But of course, what's not necessarily, and of course, the problem with a lot of musicians is that we're all, in a way, we're all perfectionists. We want things to be perfect, you know. But I mean, you know, to you, a bad day, the audience is going to sound great, you know. But you had a bad day, think, oh, that note, or that something didn't quite go right. I mean, and that's kind of in a way what makes you want to strive to be better, because you're always thinking, yeah, it was good, but can I make it better, you know?
Yeah.
But then it's not a bad mindset for everyone to approach, you know. It's like, if you want to be better at something, just, you know, do it again.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if you want to make the perfect Victoria sponge and, you know, become a demon cake maker, then, you know, that you speak to somebody who's a professional baker, and they go, well, I've made hundreds of these.
Yeah.
And the first 10 were an absolute, they're in the bin,
Yeah.
you know. And it's that, you know, but it's accepting the fact that, you know, sometimes things work, and sometimes things come easy, and sometimes things are just a little bit more difficult, you know. But again, it's going sticking at it and overcoming the hurdle and overcoming the challenge, and, you know, and meeting the challenge and go, okay, you know, and again, I can't do that yet, but I will.
Yeah.
And if you've got that drive and that determination, then it's amazing how far you can get, I think. So, yeah.
Alan has provided us with a thorough insight into the expectations you can have when entering into lessons again. He shows how useful it is to have a guide along the way, and the benefits of building a relationship up with someone you can trust. In his experience, one of the joys in this practice is taking it out of the teaching room and into the concert hall. He's supported his adult learners as a mentor in orchestral brass sections, alongside them and as well as an audience supporter. As a teacher, he takes genuine pleasure in nurturing his students' talents and watching them progress and develop as musicians, regardless of age or ability. I'm going back to Christina Lydon now, who you might know from the episode we did on therapy, about her current experiences as an adult learner. As the professional standards for music therapy expect progress to be maintained, Christina found herself a teacher who has the ability to encourage her talents. This is what she had to say.
As a music therapist, we have to have membership of Healthcare Professionals Council, and that means that music therapy is like a protected title. So you can't say, oh yeah, I'm a music therapist, without A, having trained on a registered course, and B, then registering with them, the HCPCP. Because with that, there are lots of different aspects we have to show each year that we are covering in terms of continued professional development. So in terms of learning and taking care of ourselves, and so we're fit to practice, but also one of those is about performance. So already to start on a music therapy training course, you have to be of a professional standard, but you also have to keep that up. Yeah. So for me, predominantly, that had been around continuing to have singing lessons at times, continuing to play my flute, being in choirs, different types of choirs, maybe, you know, at times it involved more sight reading, or, you know, working on different skills and just reflecting on what skills I was working on. But in the last 6 months or so, I have also started to have piano lessons again.
Oh yes.
Very
bold, very brave.
Well, yeah, I felt it was quite brave because I'd had piano lessons as a child, but not for very long, and I didn't find it easy. I'm very dyslexic, so I find reading music very hard, and then obviously you've got the clefs as well, so that's tricky. Yes. You're trying to coordinate two hands. So for me, voice and flute was always much easier. But I use the piano all the time at work, and I use the piano improvising every day at work. But I wanted to have a bit more confidence and a bit more theory understanding, but a bit more fluency in my playing. So I had, when applying for music college and before starting to train as a music therapist, I'd had a few piano lessons as an adult. Yeah. And often part of the audition process was to perform something, not to a massively high standard, but just to show that you could get around a keyboard. And it was quite difficult as an adult having lessons. I noticed the difference of like, there's so many other things on your mind. So I wanted to find a teacher that was flexible, because my learning the piano was more about being able to improvise better in the clinical setting, often play and sing, and then just support my understanding greater. So I started having lessons again, and it's been really significant in terms of what I've learnt and in terms of my piano playing, but also more in terms of kind of confidence and learning something as an adult. Initially, it was quite daunting because what he offered was like a kind of initial kind of assessment lesson. So he said, okay, just play me something and I'll have a look and see where you are, basically. Well, I hadn't really played any pieces for years and years and years. And
it's really nerve-wracking.
It's really nerve-wracking. And I knew the kind of work that he did, and I found it really nerve-wracking. Yeah. But I shouldn't have been nervous because he was really thoughtful and really kind and responsive to what I was bringing. And then he'd ask questions, or he'd look and see and wonder. But significantly then, working on pieces where sometimes it just feels like my brain is aching. And having to work on them at home with my children watching me as I'm like, oh God, I didn't get that right. Or I've really got to do a bit more piano practice because I've got a lesson tomorrow.
So you're modelling.
Modelling to them, and also modelling, finding it hard and having to do that line again.
Yeah.
Or I just need to just work through this again. And then actually being able to do it.
Yes.
And being frustrated and seeing me be frustrated, and hopefully try and see me manage to regulate myself a bit. Be frustrated but not, I'm never playing the piano again. Which has been really significant. And then I've seen a direct response in my music making at work, that obviously my confidence in my playing has been really different. So
it's actually working through all of these things alongside someone else has been beneficial to you.
But the key, one of the really significant things though is, I guess, the skill of my teacher to be able to respond to teaching an adult, which I think is quite different.
Yes, it's different.
I mean, he teaches kids as well, but teaching adults too, I think, is a real skill, because you might be dealing with what they've learned, but it might be many years ago, or gaps they've got, like I'm saying with me, and just ways to respond. So I'm actually just quite in awe in the way he's able to do that in a really responsive way, which for me has been so helpful. As I said, we have to carry on performance and skills, which I've been doing, but not in this particular way. And I really noticed the difference where, perhaps where it's been frustrating or hard or difficult, but then how I've managed to that kind of mastery. That has such a significant good impact on my well-being in a really different way that I hadn't appreciated for a long time, or I certainly hadn't appreciated it as an adult or as being a parent, in fact. This kind of time in my life. And it's really different. It's like something else to add into my week when there isn't a lot of time and flexibility. But actually, I still managed it, some weeks more than others. But that feeling of creativity and that feeling of mastery has been really significant.
Once you've found your instrument again, pieced it together and had a go, where do you turn to from here? Well, I think the internet is definitely your friend. From online YouTube lessons to fingering charts and second-hand tuner daybooks, it's easy to make a start and try playing some of your favourite tunes. And after that, it might be time to invest in a teacher and see where that leads. Or, if a social setting is your goal, then look around for an ensemble near you. Check online, or word of mouth, or even form your own. Putting an ad up in the local post office could be an interesting way to make some new contacts that you didn't know live around the corner.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Music in Practice. I hope it's given you a little insight into how and where to get practical help and guidance. Thanks also to Allen Cheshire and Christina Lydon for their hard work and contributions, Pete Slater for his continued IT support, and Chris Kennedy for his original track Halo. Until next time, keep practicing.
Oh, we're gonna make it.